Hi, and welcome to this latest issue of FANatics, where we learn all about steampunk. We go to Forest City Comicon and Comicon. We have so much to do, so come on, let's go already! I've heard a lot about steampunk, but to be honest, I don't know much about it, and that's why today, I'm going to learn everything I can.
Steampunk is what the future used to be. It's like what Victorian people in the industrial age imagined their future was going to be. It's a mix of Victorian era and science fiction. It's basically the age of adventure, the age of invention. Back when people were coming out with new inventions every week, people are working in their own workshops, creating steam engines and electrical devices, people exploring new worlds. My persona is that I'm an air marshal in Queen Elizabeth's Navy, Expeditionary Force. So that's what my getup is, military uniform and some armor and my sidearm, a few of my distinguished service medals.
I'm seeing a lot of, I believe it's an octopus on a lot of the steampunk jewelry. Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about what the relationship is?
It's just kind of a symbol we adopted for our London group years ago, and it just, I guess the octopus is a creature that can change into anything it wants to. So in respects, that kind of is what steampunk is. It's a creature that can make itself fit into any environment it wants to.
I have been interested in history for forever, and I think the thing I love most about steampunk is that you take a little bit of that true historical creativity and you mix it with something that's sci-fi, a little bit of time travel, and then just a little bit of something that's more personal to you. I like the fact that you can create your own backstory, your own character, and as a historian I like to kind of mix different characters that I come across in my research and kind of morph it into kind of a steampunk persona.
Can you tell me a little bit about your character?
Sure. Well, I think my character name is Inspector Prudence Nightbottom. And she is kind of a self-proclaimed inspector because she is an aristocratic adventurer, and what that means is that she has the money and the means, but she's not really an adventurer. She's kind of a weekend adventurer, but because she's aristocratic, there really is no such thing as a weekend, so she likes to go on jaunts. So she'll get together with a few other aristocrats and rent either a balloon or a dirigible, and she's decided that she is going to kind of be the boss on the ship, but she really can't fly it. But she just likes the idea of getting dressed up and kind of being in charge and telling everybody else what to do.
It's a wonderful event that I thought I wanted to be a part of. I am very Victorian at heart and spirit, and love to dress up and go to romantic events and kind of use my imagination and creativity to put together costumes kind of on the fly, which I did last night. And you know, it's fun to pull things out of the closet. I guess it makes you feel that, you know, it's worthwhile actually holding on to some of these pieces, some vintage fur and old antique brooches. That's kind of one of the key elements, I think, in steampunk is technology and things that I love that it blends the past with the present, and actually in a much more romantic and adventurous way. I am an adventurer, so I love to travel, and I think that I certainly would have, if I was going to pick a time in the past to have lived, it would have been around the 1880s, and I would have been traveling by steam train and by airship, who knows.
Comic collecting is huge, but there's so much that you need to know. And how am I going to find out? I'm going to learn from Bram at Heroes.
This is Heroes, biggest and best comic store in southwestern Ontario. We are a store that focuses on comic books, toys, cards, and other collectibles, predominantly like pop culture stuff and whatever fits into comic book culture. My love for this store is that I get to be here and talk about comics and promote things that I love all day. You know, see what people are into, suggest other stuff that I'm way into, try and really promote stuff that I think is of value.
Let's say I want to be a collector. I want to start collecting comics. How would you suggest I would go about doing so?
So usually I'll say, what kind of books do you read? What's your favorite movies? From there we can work very closely to, oh, you like that type of movie? These comics are really like this, you'll love them. And that's where you gotta start. It's gotta be passion, right? You don't wanna just collect stuff to have stuff. You don't wanna just collect stuff because you think that one day it'll be worth money. Main purpose should be enjoyment, enlightenment, enrichment, all these things that you should get from any great artistic medium. Keep things as simple as possible. There's no real difference. Comic book this is traditionally a monthly periodical. Graphic novel or a trade paperback is just a compilation of a longer story arc. Most comics are written in 6-part story arcs, so this is really just one part of a 6-part story. So the problem with this for an introductory piece, just a single comic, is often it's to be continued and it's continued on from something else before. So it's like sitting down half hour into a movie, watching 15 minutes and walking out and not catching what happens after and what happened before. So yeah, you really want to explain to people where we're starting. Here's a good beginning point, finding them those sort of beginning points, getting them started. This is a story. It's a storytelling medium. You want to start from the beginning. Nobody does that with movies. Just watches 15 minutes and walks out. So that's all that it really is getting people started at the right spot. Most of your great comics through time are not independently produced, but they're produced by creators with vision that aren't working on a property necessarily. Batman's cool, Superman, Archie, Star Wars. Those are all cool and they're a lot of fun. But most people that are doing something great that really becomes something that stands out in our genre, or in our medium, in any medium, does something original. It's a creator, often a guy that draws and writes. A lot of what's come through Hollywood, yeah, there's the studio pictures, which are Marvel and DC characters for the most part, but a lot of those big movies that are really cool were based on original ideas. Scott Pilgrim, Watchmen, Sin City. Those are like 1 or 2 comic creators that had a vision, that did something really unique and built something from scratch, and I think that's where you'll find most genius in any medium. What makes a comic valuable is 2 things: supply and demand. Supply being the rarity. Often what is old is rare, or is at least in good condition is rare. And then demand is actually the more important part. It's something that people actually are passionate about and care about and are willing to spend money on. It's properties that are part of our zeitgeist right now. So if you look back at the past, like in the 40s, 50s, Westerns were huge, like war characters were huge. So there's a lot, those were big genres. They're not the most popular genres anymore. So an old Lone Ranger comic, while hard to find in good condition, doesn't have a huge value because even though they keep trying to put movies out there, they're not really grabbing public interest. Where 1963, along comes all these Marvel characters. That's like huge, right? Every kid can tell you the origin of all of those characters. They all have their favorites. So if you want to build your Spider-Man collection, your crown jewel would be that Amazing Fantasy 15 first appearance of Spider-Man. That has a ton of demand, because there's a lot of Spider-Man collectors out there. So to find that and find it in good condition is crazy and crazy hard and super expensive if you want to do it. And all that is demand. I mean, eBay really sets the standard. The auction site or the auction, it's people pushing. Now, some of it's speculative. Some of them think, oh, this is going to be worth more in the future. This new property, people don't know about it, but it's going to be huge when the TV show comes out, movie, once people finally get around to reading it. But most of what drives it is just purely demand and like that public acceptance and love of the character is what makes something rare and valuable. First is just reading them and enjoying them. So you definitely want to do that before you do anything with them. Bag and board will help preserve them, but putting them in a box or on a shelf will preserve them just as well. But I think there's a loss of focus there. What I think a lot of people see is they see that in stores we bag and board them because we have to store them and they get handled a lot here and we have to price them. And that's really what I think a lot of these supplies started as. But because of that, every collector thinks you sort of need to do that. And I actually would advise, to do it. If you have anything of value, definitely preserve it away. But it's, and supplies cost money. Would you rather have more comics or would you rather have more supplies?
I've learned a lot about comics, but how do I know how much a comic book is actually worth? Now's the time to find out.
What we've got here is a copy of X-Men #1. So you're asking, what makes something collectible? Well, this is a good example of what is something collectible. This in any condition is worth money. Most of the time you find them in this type of condition. They're usually well loved, and that's actually a good sign. It means that it was probably popular, probably well read, something that a kid would have cherished, kept under their pillow, reread, kicked around their bedroom floor. But that's usually the way that comics were taken care of up until about the late 70s, early 80s, when the idea of them as being something collectible came around. So that's why it's hard to find them in good condition. So a book like this is worth about $1,500 and super high grade, like in that condition, like it looks like it's brand new off the shelf. They can go as high as like $200,000, but it's because they barely ever exist like that. So I think first props always has to go to the creators. Stan Lee's the name that most people know. Jack Kirby's the name most people should know. He's the man who put together comic books in general. You got Stan and you got Jack. Jack did everything. Stan Lee maybe came up with the name. Jack Kirby designed the characters, made the story, drew the entire thing, paced the entire story, probably did all the heavy lifting. Stan Lee, the glory hound that he is, took all the credit. And of course is the guy that people know. But both are still important. Stan Lee had this pitter-patter dialogue that was hokey, but still kind of endearing, and still to these days is pretty endearing. The X-Men is a very thinly veiled allegory for bigotry and racism. These are mutants, which are people born with powers who are unlike normal people, and because of that they are hated and feared. And I think that really struck a chord. This was 1963. Civil rights was kicking in. We had Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, really driving things home. Feminism was around the corner, and it's something that really appealed to the zeitgeist of the time at the time, and I think has been embraced ever since, making these characters identifiable because everybody's gone through some sort of hardships. This is the first appearance of all these characters, but you've got Angel, Beast, Jean Grey, Cyclops, and Iceman. Of course, inside is Professor X, and you've got Magneto, and the great dueling ideologies of Professor X, who wants to use their powers for the betterment of all of mankind, and work together with mankind, where Magneto sort of has been disgraced through life because he was different and will use his powers to take over Earth and be the dominant species. But something that both sides can identify with, and makes both characters endearing and identifiable.
You're watching FANatics on Rogers TV. Love that show.
expecting this many people. We were hoping, high hopes for 1,000, and we broke that, surpassed it by far. We don't have exact numbers just yet, but I can tell you it's well over 1,000, and we're so excited, so excited. We've had so much support from local nerds, from Uber Cool, one of our sponsor stores, from Big Blue Bubble. There's so many people that have come out and come together for this. Heroes, any local comic book store, any comic or nerd related fan came out, supported us from the get-go. They bought a table, and they spread the word. We used Facebook and social media, and we just kept it going, and that ball rolled, and this was the result.
What do you think of all these amazing costumes?
I'm thrilled. I saw Mr. Freeze, and he's got lights and everything. I'm thrilled to see that kind of passion come out into costumes.
And this will happen again next year.
110%, guys. Look forward to it.
I've been collecting comics for a lot of years. I'm a huge fan, and today I wanted to bring a really eclectic variety of comics to the show. Especially I wanted to bring some from the Platinum Age, which is before the Golden Age, so it's kind of the initial start of comics, where they first invented the word balloon and neat things like that. So some of the books that I brought that are a little more rare and you don't see very often. This book, which features Foxy Grandpa, which I'm a grandpa, which makes that kind of cool, and I like that. I've got 7 grandkids. This one here is Little Orphan Annie. That was from 1937.
I'd like to say it was a wonderful experience and we all thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, and it was a pleasure to go into work every day. The truth of the matter is, it was the hardest job I have ever done in my entire life, and we all agreed. We started putting on makeup at sort of 6 in the morning. We started shooting at about 9 in the morning and shot straight through till midnight. Luckily, the crew at CHCH wasn't union at the time, because there is no place in the world you could push a crew like that where you'd go from 9 in the morning till midnight at night. We came up with an idea to do a sort of pseudo-horror show. Met with Sid Bibby, who at the time was the general manager of CHCH, and pitched him on the idea of this sort of pseudo-horror kid show. And he was lukewarm. He said, you know, sounds like a good idea. Let me think about it. And we thought of a way we could maybe close the deal, as they say. We went back to Sid. We said, what would you say if we said we could get a real big-time international horror star to host the show? And he said, well, like who? And the first name that came to our mind was, like Vincent Price. And he said, if you could get Vincent Price to host this show, I'd sign right now, right here, for 130 episodes. Then all we had to do was figure out how to get Vincent Price. We got in touch with an agent who put us in touch directly with Vincent. He had never done a kid's show, and we offered to pay him, which is always a good inducement. We told him we'll get you in and out of Canada, out of Toronto in 2 days, which didn't end up working that way. Joe did the puppets, and unfortunately they all sort of disappeared like everything else over the years, because everybody keeps saying, where's Grammar Slammer, where's this one, where's that one, but they're all gone. Nothing left but me and him.
That's a heavy trip.
What do you do in your spare time? What's something that you really enjoy?
I enjoy meeting Frightenstein fans. I take on as many of these Comic Cons and I do big car shows and festivals because, as I say, I'm now dealing with 3 generations of fans. The rest is history. 44 years later, it's still playing throughout Canada, the United States, in Spain, in Norway, all over the world.
When next we meet in Frankenstone, don't come alone.
Forest City Comicon was such a huge success with over 2,300 people, but what about the Fanshawe students that couldn't make it out? There's no problem with that. They can just come here.
FANShaw approached us, the Forest City Comicon, to see if we could do a sort of like encore presentation of what Comic-Con really is the following day. So we quickly organized some panels, some anime viewing, some retro gaming, some console gaming. We brought the board game library from LA Mood Comics and Games so that people can borrow a board game and play. Artists, crafters, vendors. Yeah, it was just basically, it's a concentrated small sampling of what you found at Forest City Comicon. The reception from the students has been very good. It has been very good. Just behind you, I'm sure all those students who are playing video games, they're like, I don't have class for an hour and homework can be done later. But no, the reception's really good. A bunch of students that had no idea that this was happening, so they walked by heading either one direction or the other, and they're like, this is amazing, right? And some of them, I've seen people who have just not made it out of the hall since I've seen them this morning, right? So yeah, the students are quite happy.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and
You're watching TV!
Comic collecting is huge. There's so many things you need to know about collecting, and how are you going to find out? I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you. Brahm's going to show you. Does that red light mean you're recording? Wow. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to watch us on... Sorry. It's nothing without me doing at least 10 bloopers. Hello. He's in every episode. Okay, now, table.
Hey, school kids.
Where you end up with him?
Hey, I went to every school in the country and got kicked out.
And then you went to every non-school and still got kicked out. A big league of
Meanwhile.
For a little bit, but then I started doing
Damn, that was good.
That was really good.
I don't want to do it anymore. Drop the mic. I'll never get it again. You know that. You never get it again.
I want to try it one more time.
Of course you do.